What's up, Poker Beast? Kato here, and today we're playing cards. Let's hit the felt.
Welcome back to the vlog. I have a very entertaining episode for you today, full of lots of great hands. I'm doing my standard $300 buy-in, and the first hand I look at is 8-5 of hearts in the big blind. This hand is a lesson in being dragged into the pot and saying, I'll just see the flop. Sometimes seeing the flop gets you in a lot of trouble. The middle position hijack of limped, and the cutoff bumps it up to 12. The button makes the call. I'm going to go ahead and make the call as well. So does the middle position, but then when it gets back to the hijack who limped, he bumps it up to $35. The cutoff makes the call, the button makes the call, and now I'm calling $26 into a $142 pot, and I know the player behind is going to come in, so I make the call as well. The middle position calls, and we're going to the flop 6 ways with $194 already in the pot. I now have $38 invested in a pot that I have no business being in. The dealer puts out the flop, 7 jack ace with 2 hearts. I now have a very mediocre flush draw that may not even be the best flush draw out there. It checks around to the button, and the button decides to rip it all in for $258, bringing the pot to $452. I now have a decision. Am I going to fold, or am I going to make a call that I kind of have the odds to make, although with so many players to act behind, it's still very risky. I decide to risk it for the biscuit, and I ship it in. Somehow, I now am all in with 5-8 of hearts when I was in the big blind and I could have just folded. Don't get dragged into pots. It is never good. Don't tell yourself I'm just going to see the flop, because sometimes this ends up happening. Luckily, the rest of the players fold. It's mono-y-mono, $728 in the pot, and my opponent flips over ace-5 of spades. He has an ace with a really terrible kicker and a backdoor flush draw. Really, the only thing I can get to win is my heart, unless I get super lucky. Let's see the run out. The turn is the 9 of clubs. Doesn't bring the flush, but does give me a gut shot straight draw. I'm looking for a 6 or any heart. If I don't get it, I'm going home. The dealer drops the river. It's the 4 of hearts. I binked my flush, and I'm scooping a massive pot. I have $728 in my stack all of a sudden, and I look down at pocket 10s 3 hands later in the cutoff. It folds away to the player who's just rebought in for the max. He might be a little tilted, or maybe he has a good hand. He bumps it up to $20. I, of course, am going to make the call. Now, the question is, should I 3-bet it? I think I'm just going to set mine in this scenario, so I do decide to call. The small blind decides to come along as well. We're going to the flop 3 ways with $63 in the pot. The dealer puts out the flop. It's 2-8 ace, and when the original raiser checks to me, I see this as an opportunity to bet. I don't think he would be checking any ace here, and so I bet $35. The small blind folds. The low jack thinks about it and decides to make the call. We're headed to the turn heads up with $133 in the pot. Come on, dealer, one time. Let me spike a 10. No, it's the ace of diamonds. With 2 aces on the board, my opponent decides to check to me. I think that he may be a little tilted from the previous hand, especially since I rivered him, and so I'm going to go ahead and put out a bet, thinking he'll call just about anything. I bet $45. He thinks about it for a good long time, and then he decides to raise it up $130. A very important secret to low-limit Texas Holdem is fold to aggression on the later streets unless you have a really strong hand. I don't have a really strong hand. I have a marginally made hand, but I think my opponent might be trying to get the better of me. He did check the flop with the ace on the board, and I definitely wouldn't expect him to do that with anything ace-10 through ace-king. He did make a substantial pre-flop raise, which is also concerning because usually players raise a lot with a strong holding. Regardless, I decided to make the call. We're going to the river, and before the dealer even puts out the river, my opponent decides to just ship it all in, $300. I have no idea what this means. The river is an 8 of diamonds. It doesn't change much about the hand, especially since my opponent went all in blind for $287. Alright, let's break this hand down, because I spent a long time thinking about this. This is a very polarizing bet, basically saying my opponent has something very strong, or he has nothing at all. The $20 pre-flop bet is a little bit larger than the standard for this particular game, so he could have something like jacks through aces. If he had pocket aces, it's definitely a candidate to check on the flop, but with the second ace on the turn, that means there's only one combination of aces. Now we're looking at ace-10 through ace-king. There are a lot of combinations of these hands, and definitely something he could have, but I just see him betting a lot of the time on the flop with any of these holdings. Maybe he would check ace-king, but it seems more likely that he would want to get money in the pot, protect against draws, especially being out of position. The only problem with this being a bluff is that if he's bluffing, why would he check the flop? Why would he not start the bluff on the flop and continue it through the river if he's going to put all his money in the pot with nothing? He could potentially have pocket 2s or pocket 8s, but there's only going to be 3 combinations of pocket 2s and 1 combination of pocket 8s. I don't think he would be going all in before the river with anything lower than ace-queen or ace-king, but probably just ace-king. But the question stands, why would he go all in before the river comes out anyway? That just doesn't make sense. It comes off to me as a show of strength, and why would he be wanting to show strength if he has a strong hand? So if we put him on either aces, pocket eights, pocket deuces, ace king, or ace queen, that's 21 combinations of hands. If we take away the ace queen, that's only 13 combinations of hands that he has that I think that he would be making this play with. Because of that, I decide I'm going to make the call. I'm going to make a hero call, and hopefully he doesn't have one of those 13 combinations. Unfortunately, he flips over ace king offsuit, the most likely candidate of the hand he held. If he didn't bet all in before the river came out, I definitely would have folded. He threw me off my game, and I'm paying dearly for it. Right off the bat, I've played two big hands, gotten way over my head. I need to slow down. I need to take a breath. I have $246 in my stack, and the next hand I look at is ace king offsuit. I'm in middle position, and I bump it up to $20. The small blind decides to come along, everyone else folds, and we're going heads up to the flop with $43 in the pot. The dealer puts out jack 7 king. I flop top pair with the best kicker, and the small blind decides to lead into me for $25. I'm not sure why he would be leading into me. Maybe he has a diamond draw, maybe he has a straight draw, maybe he has king jack. Regardless, I'm going to play it a little slow, and I just decide to make the call. The next card that comes out is the 5 of hearts, and again, the small blind decides to lead into me, $45. This time, I'm going to see where he is. I'm going to put his draws to the test. I bump it up 75 more to $120. He thinks about it for quite a while before he decides to fold. I'm not sure if I should have just called and let him bet on the river. I'm not sure if I should have protected my hand. I decided that I always want to err on the side of aggression and protection. I'm scooping a small pot. I have $335 in my stack. I fold around in orbit until I pick up ace, queen offsuit in the cutoff. There's a straddle in the pot, and when it folds to me, I decide to bump it up to $20. The big blind decides to come along, and so does the button. We're headed to flop 3 ways with $61 in the pot, and the flop comes out queen 7-4. I hit my top pair. I'm going to continue betting. When it's checked to me, I bet $35, and both players fold. The next hand I get is pocket tens under the gun. I'm going to open up the action, raise it up a bit to $16. The middle position player makes the call. It folds around to the big blind, who decides to bump it up to $50. I can probably put him on about 5 or 6 hands, maybe ace queen suited, but probably only ace king, pocket jacks through pocket aces. I'm going to make the call, set mining, and hope I get paid off. The middle position player decides to make the call as well. I see why you want to raise a little bit bigger when you 3-bet. It's only $34 more for us to call. It's an easy call for both of us. There's $157 in the pot, and we're going 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out 2, 8, 10. I flop top set, and even better, my opponent is betting into me $80. I, of course, am just going to make a smooth call, hoping to get the player behind in as well. There's no reason to bet when my opponent's betting into me, and his hand's pretty face up, probably a large pocket pair. The turn comes out and completes my full house, the 8 of hearts. It doesn't get any better than this. Oh wait, it does. My opponent jams. I instantly make the call, tell him right away that I have pocket tens. He lets out a really painful groan and flips up his pocket aces. I can't blame how he played. I would have played the exact same way. It's just unfortunate for him and very fortunate for me that I hit my 10 on the flop. The river comes the queen of diamonds, doesn't change anything, and I'm scooping a big pot. My first thought is, Cato, you just made a bunch of money, but imagine if you folded the pocket tens previously, you'd have $400 extra in your stack. I'm sitting with 647. I've been here before. I learned a lesson. Let's hope I can just build my stack this time. Next hand I look at is queen jack of hearts. I'm under the gun and there's a straddle in the pot. I'm going to bump it up, not too much, $16. The hijack makes the call. The button makes the call as well. We're going to the flop 3 ways with $52 in the pot. The dealer puts up the flop, queen 10-7, no hearts, but I have a top pair and a backdoor straight draw. I'm going to open the action. I bet $25. The hijack makes the call. The button folds. We're going to the return, heads up, with $102 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the king of clubs. This is a very interesting card because I no longer have top pair, although I did pick up a very concealed backdoor straight draw. I grab a handful of chips, wanting to put out a bet, and I stop and I hit the brakes. I think about it. I don't want to face a raise. I will call a bet if my opponent keeps it reasonable. I'm just going to check over to him and call down or hope for a straight. I check. My opponent thinks about it. He pulls out what looks like an $80 bet. I'm going to fold if he bets 80, but no, he cuts back to 55. I think this is just right on the edge. I could be good. He may be bluffing. I'm really behind, and I don't really want to rely on my straight draw. But for $55, I'm going to see the river. The dealer puts out a beauty on the river. It's the ace of hearts. I now have to decide what I'm going to bet. If I check to him, he'll check right back. I need to size up big enough that I get paid off, but small enough to where he'll call. Big enough to where he may think it's a bluff, but small enough that I can keep him in with 2 pairs or maybe a set. The board's so connected. He did call my bet pre-flop, and he's kind of a tight player. I decide the perfect sizing is $130. With $342 in the pot now, he's getting pretty enticing odds to call. He thinks about it for a long time. He announces that he has a set, and he asks me if I have the nuts. I tell him yes, because I'm trying to do that whole reverse psychology trick. It's probably just better if I was quiet, but this player has a tendency not to believe me anyway. He usually thinks that I'm bluffing, and I'm trying to capitalize on that in this moment. He thinks about it. He even flips a little bottle cap like it's a 50-50 decision, and then he slides the chips in the pot. He hasn't let go. I flip on my hands. I should probably wait until he releases the chip, but forward motion is definitely binding, and I'm scooping a big one. If you drop a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel a lot. The next hand I get is ace-10 of hearts. I'm in the small blind. The middle position calls, the low jack calls, the hijack calls, the button bumps it up to $17. I make the call, and in the middle position, the low jack and the hijack all make the call. We're going 5 ways to a flop with $88 in the pot. The dealer puts out the flop, a queen deuce with 2 hearts. I flop the nut flush draw and 2 backdoor straight draws, but I'm really interested in the nut flush draw. It checks around to the button, the original raiser, and he bets $65. Of course I'm going to come along. I decide I'm just going to smooth call and see what develops on the river. Then it gets the middle position player who has had a lot of chips. He's kind of losing them. I'm not sure what that means in this situation, but he sizes up a bet and makes it $400. $400, bringing the pot to $618, and the button goes all in as well for another $145. The pot is now $763. I have to call $335. I'm definitely getting 2-1, which is what you need for a flush draw. Plus I have my backdoor straight draw possibilities. The middle position player who bet $400, he's got about $175 behind, so if I'm going to ship it, I might as well ship it all. After all, last time I shipped it with a heart flush draw, it was 8-5. This is really the make or break moment of the session. I could put all my money in the pot with an unmade hand. I could be up against another flush draw, getting rid of some of my outs. I could be up against a set, which would potentially be drawing to the full house, which would still beat me if a heart does come. I think about it for a long time. I ask the dealer to pull in the chips. I do a little math in my head, and I realize it's just right there on the edge. Definitely probably more so into the calling range. However, I decide I'm not going to put my entire night on this one hand. I've done a good job building my chips back up, and I don't want to throw it all in on. It's essentially a gamble where I could be way behind if the board pairs. I decide to make the fold. Let's go ahead and see how the hand turns out. The turn comes the 7 of diamonds, and the river is the ace of spades. One opponent, the one with less chips, showed ace-queen suited, and the opponent that raised to $400 showed king-queen offsuit. I would have beaten him in the side pot and made quite a bit of money, probably around $300, $350. I decided on the fold. It cost me money in the end. Maybe I should have stick with the statistics and the probabilities. Still, I have over $811, and I'm doing all right. The next time I pick up is Jack-Queen of Spades. The player in seat 2's changed. A 2-5 game is broken, and this player is from 2-5, and he said he's here to gamble. He proves it by going wild all in with the first few hands, or making really large bets and showing big bluffs. I raised the straddle pot to $20, and he goes all in for $120. I'm thinking my hand's pretty good. This guy has been playing a lot of wild stuff. I could have the best hand right now. If not, the odds that I have to win the hand can't be that bad. Although I did just fold a hand where I had the odds to play. Now I'm playing a hand where I have the odds to fold. I make the call for $100. The dealer puts out the flop, 4 deuce deuce. The turn is the king of hearts, and the river the ace of diamonds. It's no good for me when he shows ace 7 offsuit. He was gambling, but he did have a better holding. On to the next hand. I go card dead for quite a while. It goes around about 2 or 3 orbits. I'm sitting with $666 in my stack. And the next hand that I look at that's worth note of playing is the beautiful pocket queens. The middle position player limps. The low jack bumps it up to 11, and the hijack makes the call. I bump it up with a 3-bet to $50. The low jack makes the call, the hijack folds, we're going to the flop heads up with $118 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the 8 jack queen. A beautiful top set for me, but a very connected board with 2 diamonds and a straight already possible. I go ahead and bet small, $20, and my opponent makes the call. I'm not sure why I bet so small. I just think that in this situation with such a connected board and $118 already in the pot, I should be betting larger. The turn is the 7 of diamonds, not what I want to see. Now there's flushes and straights out there, and my opponent leads into me for $55. Definitely not what I like to see, but I, of course, can't fold top set, and so I make the call. The river comes the 2 of spades. I'm going to have to stick with the set. No full house coming my way, and my opponent stacks up and puts in a bet of $135. Now, I could totally see him leading out on the turn if he hit a flush, because players want to get money in the pot when they have something that is strong, especially when that's something that's strong is a draw that gets there. Sometimes they get excited. Now I have to decide, am I going to call $135 with top set? I am looking for a reason to fold. Maybe he has a straight even to beat me. He probably has the diamonds. Then I knock myself back into reality and tell myself, you have top set. Maybe if you had bottom set you could fold, but top set is just too strong. If he has the diamonds, I'm going to have to just eat it. I make the call. Luckily, he doesn't. He flips over 9-7 offsuit. I caught him in a bluff, or maybe he was betting that turn for value when he paired his 7s. Regardless, I'm relieved to be scooping a big pot. My stack's grown, $944, and the next hand I look at is ace-king offsuit and the hijack. It folds around to me, and I'm going to bump it up. Make it $15. It folds around to the big blind, who just came from the 2-5 table. He's known to be an aggressive player at the 1-3 game. He bumps it up to $50 and tells me there's no shame in folding. Sorry, buddy, I'm not folding this one. I make the call. We're going to the flop heads up with $101 in the pot, and the dealer puts out king 8-10. I have top pair with the best kicker, and the big blind leads into me for $50. I make the call. We're headed to the turn. It's a jack of clubs. When my opponent checks to me, I decide I'm going to put in a nice bet. I make it $120. I want to charge him in case he has a queen, and if he has king queen, I'm definitely getting paid off. He makes the fold. Pots are continuing to be shipped my way, and it feels great. The next hand I look at is king 10 offsuit on the button. The under the gun player bumps it up to $13. The middle position player makes the call. I'm going to tag along as well. I have the great position and a decent hand. The flop comes out jack 10-8, all diamonds. My middle pair is not too strong, but when it checks to me, I decide to put some pressure on the pot. I make it $20. Both the under the gun and middle position player call. We're headed to the turn with $103 in the pot when the dealer puts out the king of spades. I was planning on shutting down, but with this new development, I'm going to go ahead and protect my pot when it gets to me. I bet $50. Maybe I could have bet larger, but I'm hoping to keep worse holdings in. Ace of diamonds, for example. They both make the call. We're headed to the river 3 ways with $253 in the pot, and it's a beauty. It's the 10 of hearts. The middle position player leads into me for $45. He's all in. I decide I'm going to try to get some money out of seat 2. What's a good number that he could call if he already has a flush? What's a good number that he could call if he has a 10? I decide on $200. Unfortunately, he folds away immediately. The opponent shows me ace of diamonds, and since I know I haven't beat, I'm just going to show my hand. He's already lost all of his money. No reason to rub salt in the wound and put a sour taste in the game. There's also an hourly high hand promotion where you get $75 if you have the highest hand of the hour, and this has put me in the running for it. I'm feeling good. My stack has grown significantly. It's at $12.77. What a comeback from after I made that donkey mistake with the pocket 10s. I fold around a bunch of hands. At this point, I'm kind of just waiting for the hour to be up so that I win the $75, but I get a hand I can't fold, king 10 of spades. I'm in the big blind. The middle position players both limp. The low jack limps, and I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I make it $15. The middle position and the low jack both make the call. We're going to the flop 3 ways with $52 in the pot. The dealer puts out the flop, 3 jack jack, and it checks around. The turn is the 10 of hearts. Now I have a decent hand, except for the fact that someone could easily have a jack. It checks around to the low jack, who bets $20. I make the call, and so does the middle position player. The river is the 7 of diamonds. I check my hand, ready to give it up. Surely I can't beat both of them. When the middle position player checks, the low jack bets $50. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if I can beat the low jack, and if I can beat the low jack, I'm not sure if I can beat the middle position player. I'm thinking about just making the fold, although I do have a pretty solid hand, and then the middle position player goes to throw her hand away. That's not really what gave me the information I needed. What gives me the information is the player in the low jack gets upset about it. If he had a jack and wants me to call, my call is now easier with the player behind me folding, and so that would be good for him, not bad. Because I have that information, I make the call, and indeed, he flipped up ace 8 of clubs. He had nothing. I'm scooping the pot. I have a little over $1,400, and the hour ends, which means I win the $75 high hand promotion. I decide I'm going home. It's 3 a.m. I rack up my chips and head to the cage. It's a 3-rack day, a fantastic comeback, and I'm turning my chips into cold hard cash. Thanks for watching. Appreciate the views. Don't forget to subscribe. Kato out.